Hiya guys, welcome back to another video, and today it's a big one. It's a match preview. Big game tomorrow, of course, coming up against Forrest. I think some people might be underestimating them, so it's going to be interesting to have a proper conversation. Dave laughs already. We're going to have a proper conversation about it. We'll go through the starting 11s and some predicted 11s on the tactical pad a little bit later on. Get Dave's view on City, Dave's view on Forrest, and have loads of sort of talk in the next half hour, hours or so, however long Dave's got. So guys, make sure you drop a like on the stream. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you're new, and obviously get your questions in the live chat. But first of all, Dave, welcome in. Thanks for coming on, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, not too bad. As I say, I've just come through an hour's five-a-side earlier, having notched, so I'm in a decent frame of mind. Stevie Cooper's rung up, so can you bring your boots tomorrow? So I'm in good nick, mate, and it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me on, mate.
Well, thanks.
And you've saved what you've done, kid. You've saved me from Birmingham and QPR tonight, so thanks very much for that.
That's all good. Thanks for coming on, man. I was just saying,
mate,
five-a-side, man. It's a nice sport to play. It's a fun sport to play with your mates, but you don't have to take some kicks, do you? And that, mate, your ankles are absolutely chopped by the end of it. So
yeah, and especially at my age, mate. And I've gone without shin pads tonight, so I've got a bit grealish. You know what I mean? So if you hear any rustiness, creaking, it's either the traffic on the main road I live on, or it's my bones, mate. So I'll apologise in advance for that. All right,
ankles have gone. Dave, thanks for coming on. First of all, what's your obviously City channel mainly? So what's your take been on City, sort of coming off the back of last season, the treble? A lot of people maybe thought or suggested we could have a little bit of a dip. Obviously, you've won the treble. Can you get yourselves back up? What's been your sort of take over our transfer window and obviously how we've started? What's your view been as a Forest fan?
Well, to me, it's just the epitome of sense and the epitome of class, LB. That you know, I mean, to me, City are like one of those epoch teams that we've had. You know, Barcelona a while back, and then United in the 90s, Liverpool in the sort of the 80s. I talk about Holland in the 70s and Brazil when I was a kid, you know what I mean? And going back to the babes and what have you. So with City, it's business as usual, and it's brilliant the way they've kind of established this equilibrium that they have. I mean, after the treble, I kind of thought that night after they won in Istanbul, there'll be a sort of not a drop off, but a sort of a less kind of intense beginning to this season. But mate, 5 wins from 5, playing terrific football. They had a nice little test at Sheffield United. They came through that, and they're the pinnacle of football for me at the moment, mate. And if I was a City fan, I'd be really happy with the business that's been done. And they've kind of segued from last season's incredible achievements into this one, and it doesn't seem as if they've missed a beat, really. All I would say is that the injury list is a little bit of a problem, but City have so much depth and class and quality that the way they are, I'm sure they'll ride through it. And the way I look at the league now, mate, I mean, we've talked in the past about big 4s and big 6s. It's a big one now for me. I think City are. I mean, anybody coming on now saying City are not going to win the league, they're likely to get a visit from a van with some guys in white coats, mate. So I sit with my old man and we talk football. The old boy, he's football through and through, and he loves Forrest like I do. But we sit and I mean, if you like, tomorrow's match, mate, is a match between the team I adore and I love, and it's so much a part of my being. And the team that I admire, and I'm really looking forward to it, mate. You know what I mean? So I think City are, they're just on a different plateau, plane level from everybody else. And I think the business they've done is great. And also there's a little bit of, some kids coming through as well with Rico and people like that. And, they're such a good side, mate, honestly, So. No, I don't see any problems for City, mate.
Interesting. No, it's good to get views from opposition fans, see what they think. But I agree. I think our business this summer has been incredible. And bar the signing of Gvardiol, which wasn't even really necessary, I think we've got him in for the future. We've not even spent really that much. If you look at Kovacic, 25 million. Nunes, 50 million. You've got teams in the relegation zone spending.
Doku, mate. Doku's a really good signing.
He looks super good. So absolutely, I completely agree. Let me turn the attention a little bit more onto Forrest now. Then, so obviously got promoted last season in the division for the first time in a long time. A lot of sort of obviously what went on in terms of all the transfers wasn't exactly ideal. It wasn't pretty at times, but
No.
Steve Cooper, obviously there was a moment where everyone thought he was going to be gone, and then they give him a new deal. I mean,
Yeah.
so talk to us about the sort of relationship between the owner, the manager, and maybe the connection from the fans, because it seemed that that moment that he gave him that sort of confidence vote maybe sort of sparked a little bit of sort of, oh, hang on a minute, no, we're not going to get rid of him. So any media speculators, any fans who were on his back, you might as well stop now, because that's not going to happen. And you ended up getting through. And now this season, I'm sure we'll come on to this season a little bit more, but I've watched a couple of Forest games already this year. I think you look like a great side. So talk to me about that connection between the owner, manager, and then obviously the fans looking in.
It's LB, it's a 2-year thing, mate. In fact, it's a 2-year and 1 day thing, because yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of Steve being appointed to replace Chris Hughton. And you know, if you look at that in the round, mate, what he's done, that body of work from sort of September the 21st, 2021 to where we are now on September the 22nd, 2023. I mean, we're about to go into a game tomorrow afternoon against the finest team on the planet. Exactly 2 years and 1 day ago, we were bottom of the championship. So I like to think, I don't like to kind of give it the big up with Forrest. I like to know where we are in the food chain. I won't come on here. You probably see me on with some of the lads. You know, some of these guys like my club this, my club that, whatever. I don't do that. I know where we are in the food chain. But what I would say to LB is that the rise from that point to this tonight is pretty meteoric, really. And what Steve Cooper, the impression he gave when he got the job was that he'd looked at Nottingham Forest from afar. It was almost like it must have been in the pipeline. They must have known that Chris Hughton they were going to give him a trial period. It went nowhere. I think we had 1 point from the first 21 in the championship. Steve came in and he's from his first interview, he gave this lucid idea that he got the club, and especially the history, which for some managers, you know, the Clough years and the golden era, sort of from 75 to 92. For some managers of our club, that's been a millstone, and it sunk them. Steve came in. He said he understood. He made a point of understanding the club, and he understood as well its place in the community within the city of Nottingham. And you got this feeling he got it, and then he made some really good decisions. His first decision, our world turned on a game at Huddersfield, mate. Seriously, we went to Huddersfield. We got 1 point from 21. We went to Huddersfield. Stephen Reid and Warren Joyce were in temporary charge. We won at Huddersfield 2-0. Joyce and Reedy changed everything to make Forrest look like a sort of a positive side, and played in a way that the lads themselves seemed to really enjoy playing. Steve comes in a couple of 3 days later, and he could easily have said, right, thank you very much, lads. I'll take it from here, on your way. And he didn't. He said, I like what you did. Stay with us. Let's go on the journey together. And then we just gathered momentum into the championship. And we eventually found our way through one of the worst football matches I've ever seen in my life at Wembley. It was a shocking game against Huddersfield. And if VAR had done its job that day, we might not even be here, because Lewis O'Brien, when he was a Huddersfield player, was brought down by Max Lowe. If John Moss had even bothered to have a butcher's, mate, I might not even be talking to you. I might be talking to a lad from Derby or Lincoln tonight, mate. You know what I mean? So, and then the next sort of phase, if you like, was last year. Now, obviously, there were lots of asides and wisecracks about Forrest are signing 600, and they're all bussing them in, and jetliners full of players coming in. But that was necessary, mate. And I got slightly irritated, LB, by this idea, this lazy narrative on your Talk Sports and the media and all that. How dare Nottingham Forest? How dare they be upstarts signing all these players? But the truth of the matter was, mate, that 5 of the lads that did sterling service to get us up, like Garner, Spence, Sinkenagel, Keenan Davies, people like that, Max Lowe, were all loan players. So they were never ours to start with.
You had to.
So, absolutely. And that's the key, mate. We had to do it. Lewis Grabban was at the end of his contract. Certain others clearly weren't good enough for this more exalted level. So it was a case. It was a sort of an amalgam of Steve thinking, I need to get better in, and Mr. Marinakis with his ambition saying, all right, mate, I'll give you what you need and we'll go forward. And then it was like, And at the time, it started off to me as a pretty shrewd strategy. I think the first sign was Taiwo, funnily enough. And then Musa Niakate came, Dean Henderson came in, and those three signings, in the fullness of time, were pretty good, and they looked good at the time. And then it seemed to go doolally from the moment that Jesse came in, and then everybody. I mean, I think everybody misread the Jesse. When Jesse Lingard was signed, it was TikTok, this, clothing brands and all that, and they missed the essential point that Jesse Lingard actually came in. He liked the vibe that the Forest people gave him, and it kind of went a bit doolally from there, And then obviously there were more signed in January, and then where we are at now is that it was literally chucking bodies at it last year, mate. Right here, Steve, have that lot, and his genius was that he managed. It's perhaps an overrated word. His skill, his aptitude, socially, to say, right, these 30-odd strangers have come from all over the place. Let's make them a cohesive unit, which he managed to do, I think, from sort of Liverpool away in April onwards. And then Forest, from that point on, for the first time, looked like they were going to be a Premier League side. But the watershed moment in the 2 years, LB, without a shadow of a doubt, mate, was October the 3rd of last year. We played Leicester City on a Monday night when they were bottom and we were second bottom. And we were obliterated 4-0. Oh, Taiwo hit the post before I think Maddison put them in front. But from that moment onwards, Leicester striked Forest. And I remember at the end of that game, mate, Steve and the lads came over to us in the away section of the King Power. And there was some trepidation and there was some timidity. You could see like, oh, crikey, I've got to go and applaud the fans, but they're going to give me... No, 3,300 Nottingham Forest fans that night, mate, sang his name to the rafters of the King Power, such that on the Friday that followed, Marinaki said, all right, mate, we'll give you a contract. You know what I mean? I think there was a thrashing out of issues between Mr. Marinakis and Steve. I think Steve thought there were some people who were perhaps getting a bit too involved from the non-playing side, And to me, my way of thinking is business people run the business side of football.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
And so then what happened was he gets his contract on the Friday. We played Villa at home on the Monday night in a pretty dour, dull match, but it finished 1-1. And then it was a case of like, right, we came up, and Burnley are kind of learning it. Blades and Luton are having to learn it. That which stood you in good stead in the Championship will not necessarily stand you in good stead here. We tried to play the same way at the start of last season, mate. We tried it at your place. We came unstuck 6-0. Yeah. We tried it at Leicester. We came unstuck 4-0. We tried it home to Bournemouth and Fulham and led in both and got beaten both. And at that point, Steve said, right, if nothing else, we're just going to be a nuisance. We're going to get stuck in the throats of these teams. And what he did, and I think to his great credit, and I think Vincent Kompany, for example, and Hecky and Robbie Edwards, they're going to have to do similar things. Steve decided he was going to play in a way that he didn't really want to, but it was a needs must. And it kept us up, mate. And at the end, I mean, the day we stayed up by beating Arsenal 1-0 at City Ground, mate, was absolutely astonishing.
I watched that game.
And you know what, mate? You talk about our fans. I do think... I had this conversation with Potsy and the boys last night, and Potsy came up to that game where Arsenal came to our place, as did Robbie Lyle and Judges and all the lads, all the Arsenal boys. And I remember all of them on their channel saying they'd not known an atmosphere in a football stadium like in the City Ground that Saturday afternoon, that Saturday tea time, I think it was. And actually, I should think all the City people were watching that night, because down by the River Trent, we gave you I said to my dad, I said, hey, we've won the title. We've won it for City. You know what I mean? So where we are, mate, now is, I mean, and the thing is, we're 8th, mate. It's bizarre beyond belief. It's crazy, but,
it's crazy. Listen, let me ask you about one player there that you mentioned a couple of times, and from what I've seen this season, he looks like a real player. Signed him for best part of 20 million euros last year from Union Berlin, who of course had a great year last year. And look, a great side, only got beat 1-0 off Real Madrid. I don't know where that's. I'm going to look into that. I don't know where their meteoric rises come from, but listen, talk to me about you call him Taiwo, although that's not the name he has on the back of his shirt, but that's obviously his first name. He just looks to me like, when I watch him play, he just looks like you mentioned there, Forrest needs to be like a real handful. I mean, he looks like a real handful. He can hold the ball up well. A lot of these big, powerful strikers usually don't have a great touch. I think his touch ain't the worst in the world. Gets himself in a good position in the penalty area. I really, really like him. Talk to me about him and sort of how he can maybe relieve pressure at times as well for Forrest, and of course some of his quality. I think he's one of your best players. I think he's great.
Well, I mean, the thing is, mate, when he was first signed, I mean, I did that thing that we all us lads do where we go and look at highlights really on YouTube. Because, I mean, in my case, because I live on my Todd, there's no missus, no kids. So I'm like watching like highlight reels like a sado, you know what I mean, mate? And I remember watching Taiwo's highlight reel when we signed him because it kind of came out of the blue. It was the first signing. So I think it was £17 million, like you say, 20 million euros. And I look at his highlight reel. And what I noticed, mate, was that all the goals he scored for Union Berlin, a lot of them were like a ball over the top, right, big man, run onto it, do your stuff, and do all that kind of stuff. And when he came to us, he got a couple of goals early on, but he looked a bit baby giraffe, and he's not a grace. Taiwo isn't what you would say a fluid mover. I mean, I used to watch Brennan Johnson, or you watch Phil Foden. These lads are so fluid in movement. They're beautiful to watch. I mean, Phil Foden, for example, is almost balletic. If he wasn't a footballer, he'd been the Bolshoi or Covent Garden, mate. He's that beautiful to watch, Phil Foden, right? Now, with Taiwo, he seemed to run like his legs were out at the side, like swords on a chariot, mate. You know what I mean? And I thought, I'm not sure about this guy. And he seemed one-dimensional in that it had to be a ball sort of over the top or through a back four for him to run onto. And also last season, he was hampered by injury. He missed, so he scored the winner for us in our only away win at Southampton. And then he got hurt in that game. So he missed, I think, the best part of 3 months before he came back at Liverpool away. And what I noticed when he came back, that game at Liverpool away when we lost 3-2 was another watershed moment because we could have got a draw there. We hit the bar at 3-2 down, and Taiwo himself had a chance. But that day, it seemed like he'd had like a change of personality. Up to that point in January when he got injured, he seemed like he was doing well, but it just seemed a bit like I want him to be a bit more dirty guts to me. You know what I mean? A bit nasty. Go on, mate. You're a big lad. Be a handful. When he came back that day at Liverpool, he gave Konate and Virgil a right sort of going over. And what he showed that day was that he'd obviously worked with the Forest coaching staff, and that's to the credit of Alan Tate and Steve, Andy Reid and Stephen Reid and Jamie Wilson, the boys behind the scenes. This hold-up play was a new dimension to his game. So he was like, the ball was being played up to him. He's holding Virgil or Konate off, and he's thinking, right, well, there's Morgan, there's Bren, there's Yatesy, right, I'll bring these guys into the game. And he's taken that on, and it's lovely to see. I think it's to the credit of our coaching staff and to the lad himself, because he's a lovely lad and he works hard. He's incredibly religious. So I don't know if like he's had some kind of divine gift given to him. But he's just sort of added to his game, and he's become a little bit, or he's on the way to become. I mean, it's a short sample, it's a short body of work, but he's on his way to becoming a talisman. And he's also providing assists. So like Monday night, we're kind of up against it because I thought Burnley played really well against us the other night. In fact, Burnley probably deserved to win. But we created a goal where the ball's to the far post. He brings it down on his chest, lays it back. Callum Hudson-Odoi bends it in. And it's good to see Taiwo's adding more facets to his game. And he's more subtle now. And it's not a case of Forrest can only like ping a ball over the top, and he's added to us. And at the end of last season, mate, he was getting towards being unplayable at times. So,
I mean, these are his
very, very lucky to have him,
Yeah, these are his numbers from last year. Now, obviously, you mentioned the injuries, and you can clearly see that there because he only played 1,400 minutes in the Premier League.
Yeah,
but guys, if you look at the number that matters there, 10 goals. In 1,400 minutes for a club that's just been promoted to the Premier League. That is a fantastic return. And then, of course, you just mentioned then, obviously, getting on the assists. I mean, he got 1 in the whole of last year in the Premier League. He's already got 2 this season. So he's already doubled his output from last year. And I just really like the look of him. I just think that when you get promoted as a team, you mentioned Burnley before. We played Burnley first game of the season.
And watched it.
it's one of them where you come off the gate, you come away from it as a City fan and go, they look a decent side. But then when you sit down and think about it, you go, well, hang on a minute. You say look decent. What did they actually do? Well, they passed the ball nice and that, but there's no substance. There's nothing behind it. You know, you can pass the ball as much as you want. You got to have something about it. And the one thing that I thought about Burnley that night, I've actually not seen Burnley since then. I'm going to watch him on Saturday when they play United. But I just thought they lacked a little bit of aggression, and they really lacked anyone up top causing a bit of a havoc. And I just think to myself, if they would have had someone like Taiwo up top for them that night, they might. And I think that's probably why now Forrest are looking a little bit more comfortable. I mean, the way they've started this league, it doesn't look to me like you'll be in any sort of relegation problems.
No,
because teams don't want to play you. You know, Burnley. I think it's one of them. You know, this might annoy Forest fans. Burnley will get probably a lot of plaudits this season for how they play and aren't they doing good? Aren't they doing good? But they're still winless. You know what I mean? They're still winless. Whereas Forest will get wins, and Forest will take points off big teams because they don't make it easy for them. And Taiwo was obviously a big part of that.
Sorry, can I just come back onto you there, mate? Your point about Taiwo is great because, you know, I look at the teams. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, LB, I want 17th, mate. Just give me 17th as a starting point, right? Anything, you know, anything beyond. I mean, the thing that sticks in my head is Brighton and Hove Albion were promoted, right? First season they finished 16th. Second season they finished 17th. Then they were 15th, right? Before they took off. Now, if Forest can do that, I'll be well happy. I just want to be a Premier League club again. But when I look at that group of teams of which we're a part, this ain't. That's not going to last. We'll be lower after this weekend because I can't see us winning tomorrow, seriously. But when we look at that group of teams of which we're a part of, your point about Burnley, who played some lovely football the other night, but didn't. If they'd had a Taiwo, they'd have beaten us. Now, what was the one? If Wolves had had a Taiwo at Old Trafford that night, that ridiculous penalty, they'd have beaten United. Everton on the first day of the season had about umpteen shots. Now, if Everton had a Taiwo, they might have some more points. So I'm kind of looking, and I said this, and it seemed at the time like I thought I was sticking my neck out for somebody to kind of lock my head off. I said, I think that Forest have got in that bottom half group, which is where we are, mate, right? I think we've got maybe the most reliable centre forward, and they're rare beasts these days, and goal scorer of those teams. You know, I mean, Blades might have one now in Cameron Archer, or I rate quite highly. But and maybe Everton have got one in Beto, but they still have to prove themselves. And Taiwo, like you say, when you see 10 goals in an injury hit season, mate. I mean, what you had, so he scored 10. Brennan, I think, scored 8. Morgan chipped in. So our lads eventually, through grit and determination, managed to get there. But Taiwo he's really developing well, and just want the lad to stay fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another super chat coming in from Mr. George Brown, which is my dad. He said, Dave, I remember back in the day, the great Forrest.
Is that your dad, Lee? It was. So what LB? What does the LB stand for, mate? If that's not
Lewis, mate.
Lewis, and that's your dad, is it? Is that your dad? Well, I'll tell you what, mate. I'm probably as old as your dad, maybe. I don't know, but the thing is, you know what? Last year at City, mate, it's bizarre to say it, maybe masochistic to say it, but that 6-0 defeat is one of the best days of football I've ever had in my life, mate, because we had a right good laugh. I remember getting in a bit late, which I hate doing, and saying to me mate in the away section that, safe standing, bars and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, how are we doing? So it's 0-0, we're all right. 10 minutes later, Thor had done his bit, we were 3-0 down. And we had such a good laugh, mate. And it was like, what I remember, none of us left early, right? Now, that lot across the road left early, did they, in Manchester Derby? They'd all gone at half time, mate.
Yeah.
We were still in a 6-0. And what I remember is we were singing, and we can't sing it anymore. This is where City have again gone to another level. I can't go there tomorrow, LB, and say, Champions of Europe, you'll never sing that because you can.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the clips going around, actually, when the City boys went to your place and, you won't be alive, you won't be alive, and all that kind of stuff. Well,
they were singing. Hey, they were singing at us, mate. They were singing Champions of Europe. You weren't even born, and I stood in the way and going, "Well, I was." You know what I mean? So it was a belting night, mate. But yeah, as I say, those great days, like your dad. It's great that your dad's brought it up. But the problem has been, mate, that managers in all these dreadful years of underachievement and revolving doors for managers, I've almost like been frightened of it. Now, what I know Steve Cooper does is every month he meets with the lads who actually all of them are still with us, bar poor old Trevor, who we lost obviously a couple of months ago, Trevor Francis. And Steve sits down with all of them and he says, right, educate me. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And this is the way Steve socially has brought everyone together. Do you know what I mean? So he's embracing every aspect of our club, and that I mean, Cloughie is like such a colossus over. I mean, he's as near as you'll get to like one man being bigger than a club, which isn't true. But Cloughie's as near as you get, and a lot of people have found the shoes very difficult to fill. And I think what Steve's done, he's kind of said, right, well, that's the legacy. Let's bring it to these lads and then say this is what it means to play for this club, and then move forward. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think I brought that up, mate.
It's probably because the expectation as well and the history. You know, I mean, it's like you said, you want to be in the Premier League. Of course, you want to be in the Premier League. Forrest, the history of the club should be in the Premier League. But I think sometimes if a manager's going there, they walk in, they look around the trophy room, they see the trophies, and they're like, "Geez, what's going on?" You know, and then there's an expectation, and maybe no one actually says it. It's more of a feeling and a vibe that we need to get out of this league, i.e., the Championship, and get ourselves back to the Premier League. But obviously, I think what you're saying is the right thing. It's small steps. You say you just want to finish 17th, and then slowly, like you don't. I think. In football nowadays, there's this sort of tendency for fans and owners and managers sometimes to just gotta get it now, gotta get it rapid. Well, that's when you make mistakes, and that's when you start. That's when you rush and sign players that you don't want to sign. And that's why actually, when I look at a club like Newcastle, who obviously had history in the past and have struggled for so long, you look at the way that they're doing things, and they don't seem to be rushing anything. They're not going out signing £100 million players.
No,
I mean, and I think maybe some Newcastle fans, who knows, some of them might have been a little bit disappointed that they didn't go and get that £100 million player in the summer, but they're doing it the right way. They're doing it slowly, and what they're doing is they're laying the foundations so that they can grow. And of course, you've got Forrest now. I think you'll survive this year, make a few more signings. And of course, this guy's got a little bit of money behind him, if I believe what I've read before. And just keep on improving the squad. But no, things are looking good. Before we sort of come on to the starting 11, I want to ask you about your midfield, centre midfield positions, because a couple of people in the chat want me to ask about Sangare. I want to ask about I want to ask about Mangala as well, and the part that he plays in the team, as well as Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White, a player that you signed for, pretty decent money at the time. Well, obviously now you look at the money and everyone goes, "Oh, that was nothing." But at the time it was a bit of big cash, and I don't really think anyone sort of saw it coming. How is that sort of? Talk to me about that midfield three and how they sort of work as a trio.
Well, to be honest with you, mate, the great conundrum for us last year, if you like, and it was only really resolved towards the end, like the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 games of the season, was that combination in midfield. Lots of, we'd obviously bring so many bodies in. You've got lots of options and combinations that you can try, but it was only really at the end of last season where it became Yates, Danilo, and Mangala, that you kind of thought to yourself, I mean, I've run football teams and what have you, and you pick a side, and sometimes you kind of get a feeling, oh, this is not right at all. And somebody goes, why do you feel like that? And no, it's just in my gut, it's in my water. And then there are other days where you stick 3 lads together, or you stick 2 lads up front together, or whatever, and you think, hang on a minute, that's right, that just feels good. I always think like of the Glenn Miller story, right, when he was like looking for the sound when he put his band together, and until he put the clarinet on the solo, mate, he said, I'm looking for that sound. And he accidentally stumbled on having the clarinet as the solo instrument. And Glenn Miller then went, mate, that's it. That's the sound. And it was like that with Yates, Mangala, and Danilo. When Danilo came in, he was like a galvanized, a kid of 2020 from like Sao Paulo who couldn't speak in English. I think if he'd come from an extremely poor background, I think he'd come from a favela in Sao Paulo. Now he came in and he had to be chucked into the side ahead of schedule, and he sort of galvanized it. So it came together. I wish with our lot it had happened in February, although for a minute last February against Manchester City at the City Ground, mate, you got to let me have this one. we were the best team on earth for 1 minute. For
I'll
1
let you have
minute.
that. 1 minute, yeah, you
Yeah,
can have that.
LB, you know what I'm talking about, don't you, mate? You know, the 19 passes, the 11 lads having a touch, Bernardo Silva like chasing Brennan and Morgan, Ruben Diaz, the great Ruben Diaz, who I love, falling backwards. Kyle couldn't get to Woody, and for 1 minute we played the most perfect football we've played for years. Just for that 1 minute, right?
You
You know what I mean?
can have the minute.
Yeah. So I mean, City should have been 7 or 8 up by then, but that's neither here nor there. But like where we are now is that obviously Sangare's been signed, and it's a kind of like, I mean, my view on that, mate, is like, why is he with us when, you know, he could have stayed and had Champions League group stages with PSV, or I thought maybe yourselves or, you know, one of the other big guns would have said, no, we'll have Sangare, but he's with us. Now, that makes me think that our recruitment team must have said something really good and must have said, look, mate, this is a project, whatever, you know what I mean? I mean, based on what he did against Burnley on Monday night, there are people writing him off already. I mean, which again, mate, the short-termism of views in football just irritates me. And I, without upsetting anybody, where I mean, I'm of an age, like I'm a different generation to most of these lads that come on and talk on these shows, right? But I've never played FIFA in my life. Now, I'm not, my view isn't cloudy, but I don't play football, mate, with my thumbs. I play it with my feet and sometimes with this, you know what I mean? So with Ibrahim Sangare, come back and ask me again in 10 games time or 20 or 30. And like a lot of our lads last year when they came in, I mean, really, the way I look at last year, mate, was it was like a 38 game pre-season to get us to this point now, if you like.
Yeah.
And so many of them.
Again, that's just because of all the signings that you made, you know. It was, to be honest, it was probably a miracle that you survived with the amount of stuff that went on, the little bit of, obviously, until the contract was given, maybe some doubts about the manager. And, you know, you look at it and you go, Jesus, they've done up. But now you got through that season. You look like a good team. I mean, I watched the Arsenal game, first game of the season, and I thought you was unlucky to lose that. And I put that out on social media. Yeah, and I put that on social media the other day, and a couple of Arsenal fans bit as fans do, and said they battered you. And you know, I didn't think they did. I didn't think they battered you. I went on the stats and had a look at the stats, and they had a lot of the ball. You know, of course they did.
Yeah,
but
they did.
Actually, look at chances created. They didn't really do that much, to be honest with you. And in fact, I remember because I did a watch along for the game. I watched the match with the viewers, and I was actually it was funny. I actually was quite disappointed in Forrest because the last 10 minutes where it was 2-1, I actually didn't think you really pushed them that much. I thought get the ball forward to Taiwo and really sort of put Arsenal under pressure and see Arsenal and you didn't really do that. Obviously, went 2-0 up against Man United. You probably scored them goals too early. I remember saying at the time, you know,
I'd agree with that.
Always happens, doesn't it? Because what happens then is, you know, the other team, the typical big team, the better team, usually they'll start to wake up, and then they've got an hour. And of course, the team that are 2-0 up maybe starts to retreat because they want to sit on the win. And of course, you got the point at Burnley. Didn't watch it, but a lot of people have said what you said as well. Maybe Burnley were a little bit unlucky not to win the game, but ultimately you got the point. That's what matters. And they're looking like Forest are looking now like a very settled side. You've had a bit of a tricky start, of course. You've had United, Arsenal, you've got City there as well. But
Chelsea as well, LB, you know, beat Chelsea as well.
The fixtures will, you know, soften up and become more favourable. And that's when I'm really going to be interested to see how Forest get on. Because it's all good praising Forest, but ultimately you lost against Arsenal. Ultimately you lost.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, exactly. Can't get away from that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see now what happens when you play some slightly weaker sides and see how they got on. And you know, I'm rooting for Forest. It was frustrating last year when you scored that goal because that was such a one-sided game, and Erling Haaland that day decided to miss a few chances.
He decided, mate. He decided, the big man. He decided to have his worst game of the season at our place. I don't know if it was the stench of the Trent coming in over the Trent end, mate. Maybe it affected early. And Phil Foden went to set him up, and they kind of mucked it up. I'm not being funny, mate. At half time of that game, our lads hadn't been out of our own half. We hadn't even had a shot on goal. We'd had 15% possession, and it was 1-0 because Bernardo scored a beauty. I remember our lads walking off, and they got a standing ovation. It was like, what is going on here? It was like a parallel universe. But I think what it was, and again, it's to Steve Cooper's credit, everybody got the idea. And then what happened second half almost with City had so much of the ball, it drove City a bit bonkers. And then Forrest had their one moment.
Yeah.
I remember Pep getting a booking. And on the you're talking about managers, I loved what Pep said this week when he said, "Hey, remember, Nottingham Forest have 2 Champions Leagues and we only have 1." And I thought that was a really nice. And I tell you what, that's gone down really well with our fan base, and I mean, he's a great coach, Pep. Like I say, mate, I love Forest, but I really admire City. So, and when I came out last year, I remember people sending me messages, "Oh, you've had a good idea there." I mean, hey, look who we've just lost him. That night, City played walking football, right? And Forest were running around like blue arse flies, and City were just like universes ahead of them. And it was like, and I said, we all stood there as lads, like, and like, my goodness. The only weird thing was like the City fans were all looking at us, and I'm chatting to one City fan. Why don't you watch Erling Haaland and Phil Foden? They're the people you should be watching. Don't be looking at me. Watch that lot, So, I mean, and as you say about the easier fixtures, mate, I watched the Forest podcast this week, very, very sound podcast, where they were saying really tomorrow for us, it's unlikely we're going to get anything. It's a kind of free hit. It's a litmus test of progress for us. So we don't. I mean, I think tomorrow's score, right? If you want a prediction of me, it's 4-2 City, right? So I think City will win. But what I want, I don't want another 6-0 drubbing. I want us to be. If it was 3-0, I'd think, well, at least we're 3 goals better than we were last year. But after tomorrow, mate, after tomorrow, kid, we play Brentford at home on the following Sunday. Then we've got Palace away on a Saturday tea time, and then Luton comes. So this is actually no disrespect to City. The game tomorrow is a kind of a busman's holiday out, and then the serious stuff in a way for us starts those 3 games after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, they're the games that you're really looking at targeting.
Defining games, yeah.
I think you said score prediction 4-2. Someone in the chat can maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe someone in the chat told me the other day that City haven't conceded more than a goal since January 2023. So I don't know. Maybe Forest will be the team that scores more than a goal. But our defense.
Maybe we'll be 2-0 up after 4 minutes, and then
again
City will go. We'll say, too early, and then City will run riot, mate.
That's what Elder in the chat says. We haven't let in more than 1 goal since Spurs. That was when we beat them 4-2 at home. We went 2-0 down. Yeah, that was the last time we did it. Let's go through then some predicted 11s then.
Okay, mate.
We can do City 1 and we can do Forest. Obviously, City have a lot of injuries, and you can maybe talk us through the Forest team. But what I normally do, I'll do the City defense, then we'll go through the Forest defense, midfield, etc. So let me start off with City. Mate. So I think obviously Ederson will be in goal for
This is where you frighten me, LB, with your lineup, mate, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, though, Dave, because it's Pep Guardiola, we actually have no idea what we're doing at this point. This bit here, when we do the tactical pad and we get the team lineups, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just guessing, because with Pep Guardiola, you never have a clue what he's going to do.
No.
Unfortunately, John Stones is still out, which is a real shame. So I'm thinking I don't think we're going to see him now till maybe near the back end of October, which is a real shame because he's a
good player, great player.
He's such a good player. But Ruben Diaz will slot in there. I'd imagine that Walker will continue to play, which is a little bit disappointing from a Kanji, because he's done nothing wrong. But
Walker's class, mate. How Kyle is that fast in his mid-30s? I think he's a world-class right back. I love watching him play. And my favourite bit of Karl, though, was at Sheffield United, where he was like lying off the pitch watching what was going on. And then he made up for it. I think he's wonderful, mate. Great player.
He's a fantastic right back. I think he should be, in with the shout of being the best right back that's ever played in this, certainly in the Premier League era. Because he's miles better than sort of like the Nevilles, and he gets touted up there. In my opinion, he's just a lot better than that. And the thing is with Walker, right, is because he's an actual athlete. When he at the end of the game he's just absolutely shredded. He's ripped, like he's in the gym all the time. He will play football until he's 38, Dave. And the difference, and the reason why he'll play until he's 38 to the top level, is because when he does lose that little bit of pace, he'll go to centre back. He'll play centre back. That's what'll happen. So he won't just fade off into the sunset, he'll move into the centre back position, and he could do that at City. He's done it for England. He played there for the last 15 minutes for City the other night. Or he could get like a move. I know that he's always said he wanted to go back to Sheffield United, but I mean, I don't know when that would be, because for me, he's still going to be a top player. And there's no wonder City would give him an extra contract, because if we would have let him go, then we would have been proper stupid. Okay, left side then. I'm still going to go with Gvardiol in this position here and Ake in this position here. That's my preferred back line. Again, I have this debate with the chat all the time about maybe playing Gvardiol there and Ake there, but for me, I think Ake, who I believe
he's come on so much, LB. He's come on so much, Nathan Ake. I think, again, I mean, I just admire the lad. I mean, I watched him do an interview on Sky Sports. Who was on about his guitar playing or something, and he's just got a piano, or whatever, mate. And he's, I mean, you know, you sign a guy from Bournemouth, and the cognizant, why are you signing a guy from a club that's, and he's been fantastic, mate. I think he's become Holland's best defender. He's probably better than Virgil at the moment, I would say.
Oh yeah, 100%. I wouldn't take Virgil over Ake, and that's like a clippable thing. But at this moment in time, I wouldn't. I think Nathan Ake is fantastic, and you know what? Dave, he can play here. He can play centre back. You know, and one other thing that was probably his weak part of the game, which is kind of a bit of an issue when you're at City, is on the ball wasn't the best. But even in the last 12 months, we've started to see that really sort of take off and get a lot of better. He's never going to be the stage of a John Stones or a Gvardiol or an Akanji, but it's good enough. So that, I think, will be the back line. Akanji, whilst fit and deserves to play, there's only 4 spots, and he's going to have to miss out. Rico Lewis again. We all want to see him play, but again, at this moment in time, we just can't get him in the team. So that would be my back line. Dave, let's get on to Forrest then. Take me through is this if you was manager, or is this predicted? What we're doing here? Is this?
I'm doing the predicted one.
Predicted.
LB.
Okay.
Yes, mate. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to keep my own flights of fancy to myself this time, but I'm going to try and read Stevie's much more intellectual developed mind than mine. So Matty Turner's going to start in goal.
What have you made of him?
He's been a really good signing, mate. I like him a lot. He's businesslike. He's got he looks like he's got some drive about him. He's keeping Vlachodimos out the side, who was signed from Benfica, the Greek national goalkeeper. Now, the view again from our cognizant is that eventually Vlachodimos will be the number 1, but Matty Turner's saying, right, mate, I'm going to keep this shirt and you're not having it. So to now, Matty Turner is waterproof. You know what I mean? I mean, the other night, early on in that game against Burnley, he made a fantastic low save to his right to keep Amdouni out. And against Sheffield United, and actually, mate, just touching on what you said earlier, actually our 3 away performances at Arsenal, United, and Chelsea have kind of, in a way, outstripped our 2 wins. Our win and our draw at home, where we haven't really played that well. And in both games, Turner has kept him, especially against Bayern Munich. What I'm talking about, Sheffield United, right?
Those are the days.
I said Bayern Munich. Hi, United fans. All right. Against Sheffield United, Joe Worrell and I think Scott McKenna bumped into each other, and Benny Traore had a run through on goal, and Matt Turner made an amazing save, which would have put Blades in front. We then went down the other end and scored. So Matt Turner hasn't dropped any clangers yet, and he starts for me, mate.
Okay. Matt Turner in goal then for Forrest. Take us through your back line. We'll go right to left.
Yeah, it's going to be a back 5, mate, because
back 5,
from what it'd be a back 5. I mean, Monday night he went with the back 4 because he wants us to be more front foot, more fluent, if you like, prettier to look at. But tomorrow it's about, mate, he said it in his presser, it's about containment, which is, it sounds a negative way to come at it, but it goes back to this being hard to beat that they learned last season. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So on the right of the 5, I'm going to play Ola Aina, I think he's been one of our best signings so far, mate. Okay. Cost nothing from, he was with Torino, used to be at Fulham and Chelsea. He's been terrific for me. And then if you like the 3 central defenders, Joe Worrell, Mr. Nottingham Forest.
Yeah. Is he right-sided centre back, Worrell? Yeah.
Yeah, him on the right hand side, mate. Yeah. And then Willy Bolly, in the centre.
Willy Bolly, bloody hell.
Big Willie. I love it when he plays because I can make all these rude suggestions about Big Willie and stuff. You know what I mean? I can get near the knuckle, LB. You know what I mean? But he's another one. He came from Wolves, and I was like, what we signed him for, you know? And
Yeah.
bless him, the big fella's made me eat my words. The other week at Old Trafford, when really, like you say, we should have got something out of it, and actually at Arsenal, I thought he was our best player, and he's become a real good, solid lad. So he plays in the middle at the back, and then on the left of him, he played Musa Niakate. Because he's got that little bit more pace than McKenna, and he's naturally left-footed.
Mm-hmm.
So him there, and then my left-hand side will be Nuno Tavares.
Nuno Tavares, obviously formerly of Arsenal, of course.
Yeah. And he gets forward quite well. So Oloraya and Aina, if Forrest somehow managed to fashion a counter-attack, those two lads are pretty good at getting forward, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's my, if you like, my back six. You could say it's the bus being part there, but
this is the thing though, Dave. Again, you know, you talk about, you know, this is Forrest have to do this. Maybe if it was at home, maybe if it was at the City ground, then maybe it'd be a little bit different. But you know, at the end of the day, like you say, you've got to be looking to make progress. And I always go back to Eddie Howe under Bournemouth, right? And Eddie Howe used to bring Bournemouth to City to the Etihad every year, play nice football, and we beat them 4-5-0 every single season. Every year it would happen. So it's like, well, what's the point? What's the point? Sometimes, yes, you want to play football a certain way. Of course, Cooper doesn't want to go to the Etihad and play the most defensive game. Of course, the Forest fans don't want to do that. You know what I mean? They want to see Forest going to the Etihad and taking players on. But Steve Cooper needs to get results, and he needs to get, if he can get a point or even nick the 3, then that'd be great. And if he sees the best way of doing that as being a bit stubborn, being robust at the back, being hard to beat, frustrating, give a few kicks to some of the City players, then try and nip one on the break or a set piece, then that's how they've got to do it. And you know, again, if we look back at the game at the City ground last season where it was 1-1, I know obviously we had chances, but ultimately you're stuck in there and you're stuck in the game and you got your just rewards. You could have come out that day. You could have been like, we're at home, we're in front of our fans. Let's put on a show. Let's go and attack Manchester City. There's a 99% chance that you would have got thumped 4 or 5-0 because of the space. So I never.
It nearly happened, mate. It nearly happened anyway, LB.
Yeah, well,
and like you say, the crucial thing tomorrow for me, mate, and that's why I'm looking at this team and I'm trying to again second guess the gaffer. It's been in the game for as long as possible. I mean, last year we were in it for 10 minutes, and then it was like became an exhibition match. Now, you know, that 6-0, I'm sure, will be raised by the likes of Joe Worrell and Yatesy and people like that who are in our dressing room tomorrow. Say, hey lads, they're a great side. Everybody knows that, but let's not have that happen again. And it's just staying in the game. And it's this business, like I say, mate, that, you know, like you say about Eddie Howe, to do the same thing over and over again with the same adverse result, that's bordering on insanity. So we don't even want to go there. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's about staying in the game. So it will definitely be a lot of ours, right, get really upset with that phrase, the low block. And I love saying it to him because I say, hey, the low block kept us up. Did you not want to stay up? What, you wanted us to play like Calypso football and get buried every week? Not me. We're still in the... I mean, if you want to look at where, like, I mean, Leicester City, Southampton and Leeds, they'd love to be us, wouldn't they not? You know what I mean? So
yeah. Very true, mate. Very true.
So that's where I come from, mate. You know what I mean?
100%. Just quickly on Willy Bolly, by the way. Played against City 5 times. He's won 1, he's drawn 1 and lost 3. He's also scored a goal against City in a 1-1 draw. He's also been sent off against City as well. So he's had a bit of a mixed sort of time against City. A win, a draw, goal, and a red card. He's sort of had it all. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Just a quick one. Big up to Aim A1, always in the streams. Thank you very much for becoming a YouTube member, my mate. Thanks for supporting me out on the channel. Big up to Aim A1 and the rest of the members. Right, let's okay, we've done the defense. Let's move it into the midfield. Let's come back to City then. So, of course, pretty standard, but we are going to see the best defensive midfielder in world football.
Mate, what a player he is, isn't he? He's fantastic.
He's
in the
unbelievable.
Champions League. I mean, the Champions League, I didn't think City played great in the Champions League final. But when the moment came, that's when a great player stands up. And
Absolutely.
I watched him last year, certainly at your place, and I just thought to myself, he's like a one-man team. He can do
Yeah.
everything.
And
And
I agree.
I would, if somebody said to me, right, you've got 20 teams there, who is the most important player to, in the Premier League? He's the one. I mean, your back line
Yeah,
is great,
I agree.
but
I agree.
Rodri, mate, he's big and he's strong. I've heard him. I watched the City documentary that was on Sky. He spoke really well in the dressing room. He's just got that essence of it. He is like if City have had when Vincent was there. Vincent was like your cornerstone that you built your team around, and Rodri is getting that way now. And I just think I'm
Well,
really
I
looking
know.
forward to watching him play, mate.
I agree. I think I don't know if you know, but City have just announced we have like a captains group that the players nominate, and there's 5 players, and he's in that 5.
Yeah.
I think that there was a decent chance that he could have become the Manchester City captain this year. Obviously, following the loss of Gundogan to Barcelona, because he's that good. I've been saying recently in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we speak about the likes of Mbappe, we speak of Haaland as being the best player in the world. Why can't we speak about midfielders? Because for me,
Yeah.
he does
Yeah.
absolutely everything that he needs to do. He's now
Yeah.
actually creating goals and scoring
Yeah.
goals. He was never
Yeah.
brought in for that. He was brought in to be a defensive player, break up the play, give it to Kevin, let Kevin do it. No, you'll see this tomorrow. He'll be chipping balls into the box, having a couple of shots. He's
Yeah.
fantastic. I think he's
I
the best defensive midfield player in the world. I really do.
do. I agree with
Class.
that, mate. Yeah.
Kovacic is injured, but some good news on this today, guys. If you've not already seen, Kovacic is back in training, but I would imagine it's probably going to be too soon for him to return. Calvin Phillips won't be getting any chance at starting tomorrow, so I'd imagine that new signing Matheus Nunes, who played against Belgrade in the midweek, who looked pretty good, I think he'll get a start in that position. And then obviously the man who is at this moment in time described by Pep Guardiola as almost impossible to drop. Not quite impossible, but almost impossible to drop. Julian Alvarez.
Do you know what, mate? Hey, I go back a year and a month, say, and that night we all turn up. I mean, like I say, I like to keep abreast of every football club. I'm not stovepiping just Forrest, because that is not. It's about I love football, and then I love my club. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was the night that Alvarez, certainly to these ancient eyes, announced himself. He played brilliantly, and then I watched him in the World Cup, and he's a wonderful player, mate. It's like any Forest fan watching it, any Forest fan who's wanting to get stop blowing smoke up their backsides, but they're just such good players, mate. You know what I mean?
You know what, as well, mate? Alvarez, £14 million.
Yeah, what a bargain, mate.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just crazy. And you look at David Moyes. David Moyes said in a podcast a couple of months ago that West Ham could have signed Alvarez, but they looked at him and thought he wouldn't suit the Premier League or something. And he come in and we've got him for 14 million quid. So yeah, no, he's been brilliant. And funny enough as well, this season he's not even been playing in his natural position. He's been playing in midfield. And something that's interesting about him is he doesn't look as polished as like Kevin De Bruyne, Gundogan, David Silva, them sort of players in there. But he gets the goals, he gets the assists. He got 5 in 5, so he's brilliant. So that would be my midfield 3. I think that given the fact that we are playing Forest, and I think that obviously Pep will know that it's going to be difficult to break down, there's an outside chance that we might see Alvarez and Foden playing the midfield. But given that Bernardo Silva is out and Jack Grealish has only just returned, I'd imagine Foden will be put on the wing. So we'll come on to that in a minute. That's my midfield. Why don't you give us the midfield then for your predicted 11 for the midfield tomorrow, Dave?
Right. Well, if you like, in our sort of Rodri position, but at the moment nowhere near as good. Ibrahim Sangare will be my sort of holding midfielder in a 3 in there, mate.
Okay, so so he'll be sort of centre, will he?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Okay, Sangare,
and then the two sort of with him in there, Ryan Yates for me.
Ryan Yates, have we got him on the list? Yep, we do. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of us. It's like he gets out the stands every week. That lad, he's a Forest boy. That lad. And what happens is that a lot of people, I think, because he's English and he's not like exotic and all that, they just kind of dismiss him and this disdain for him. And he isn't our best player, but I tell you what, LB, when he's on the field, Nottingham Forest are there, and I think he came on late against Burnley and he did drag some of the initiative away from Burnley back towards us. He did it against Sheffield United when we won. So if you like those 4 points we got at home from Blades and Burnley, Yates's late introductions, gave Forrest that final push to get something from the game, and also made you think to yourself, well, why didn't he start? You know what I mean? He's not going to knock your eye out like Foden or any of your lads that are going to play in midfield. But Yatesy will let people know he's about. He's the sort of guy who say, right, he'll come and plant his flag, say, right, I'm Nottingham Forest. If you're going to beat us, great, but you're going to have to go around me or through me to do it. You know what I mean? I remember we went to Brighton last year. So we had that really poor run. And then we went to Brighton on a Tuesday night, mate. For a hell of a long journey from where I am. And we got a 0-0 draw. And we were dominated by Brighton almost as much as we were dominated by City at the City Ground last February. And somehow, like I say, a goalless draw. And at the end of that game, Ryan Yates had a black eye, blood coming from his nose. He was covered head to foot in shit. Right. He looked like he'd been at the Somme or Passchendaele in the First World War. And all the fans sang his name. They sing number 1 is Ryan Yates, number 2 is Ryan Yates, and it goes through to number 12. Then we all live in a world of Ryan Yates. And what he does, he's like a representative of us in the stands on the pitch, and he gives the lot. And what he does, he seems like he's not the most cultured lad. He'd tell you that himself. He's a smashing kid, but he puts himself about, and he has to. He'll be in. You can imagine tomorrow, Rodri or Phil or whoever, Alvarez saying, oh God, it's that guy again. He's such an irritation. If he's irritating players of that caliber, then he's doing his job for my team. So he has to play. And then you mentioned him earlier, and it is quite interesting, but Oral Mangala then plays as well for me.
Yeah. Mangala.
Yeah. And he's a bit of an enigma, really, mate, to be honest. I mean, I think his performances for Belgium have been so good, and his performances for Forest have been so okay without really knocking your eye out. And we don't really know yet, and it's up to him to start letting us know whether he's one of these ball retaining midfielders who kind of keeps the tempo of the team ticking over, or he's something else. So for now, he's in. And he was really good at the end of last season when we needed him. He kind of goes under the radar. He's a lad that doesn't get a lot of publicity. He's not like, he doesn't have any songs sung about him. I kind of like these quieter guys.
I like from what I've seen from him this season. I like him. I think he does sort of like you just described it, sort of unnoticed work at times.
Yeah.
Maybe underappreciated, of course, like you've got the likes of Taiwo, you spoke about before. Obviously, Sangare is coming in and everyone's talking about him. And then you've got Hudson-Odoi joining the fold. Unsung, Gibbs-White, and these players, and everyone's talking about these. But, quite often it's the players who don't really who are consistently putting out 7 out of 10s or, that sort of level of performance, and who allow the other players to take the line. I like him, and I think he looks to me, from obviously the little I've seen of Forrest, like a crucial but underrated part of the team that allows other players maybe to do their stuff.
I'm thinking about your dad here, mate, and I'm thinking about City, right? Back in the day, Colin Bell, Mike Summerby, Franny, right? 3 of the greats. But in that team, you had the likes of Mike Doyle, Tony Buck, Alan Oakes, Tommy Booth, Joe Corrigan. Real good, solid pros who were never going to grab the limelight because these 3 were doing it, and yet they helped City be that team. I mean, like Neil Young. I was going to say the first football match I ever remember was 1969 FA Cup final where Neil Young scored your winner against Leicester. I think. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure it was. So. And then later cities. I remember a City with Brian Kidd and Peter Barnesby, and they had guys like Asa Hartford and Gary Owen played in midfield, who again didn't knock your eye out, but were real good, solid team players. You know what I mean? I mean, in a way, for City now, the guy who's kind of doing the work that the Asa Hartfords and the Gary Owens and those people kind of did in the day is now, in a way, maybe your most important player in Rodri. And maybe times have changed. N'Golo Kante, to me, did the same thing for Leicester City and Chelsea when they won titles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think maybe the game is changing now, where they are starting to get the recognition. Maybe because when they come out the team, you see something completely different, and you go, hang on a minute, how
very
come
true.
like they're not performing? Because I've said many a time now that if Rodri comes out this team, we're a lot worse. We're a lot worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because with all the best respect in the world to Phillips, he's just not on the same planet as
No, he's not.
Rodri.
No.
Now, time
No,
will
that's clear.
tell whether we'd be able to play maybe a Kovacic in there or Nunes, but that's obviously hypothetical. We don't know at this moment in time. But I completely agree. These players are under sort of appreciated. But it does seem, I feel like last sort of 10, 15 years, we are starting to appreciate them maybe a little bit more. Okay, so that's your three.
Yeah.
So let's move it into the attack then, and of course City really kind of picks for themselves at the moment because of injuries and whatnot. But I've still got Mahrez on there; he's obviously not there. So Haaland will start somewhere. I'll put in there between Worrell and Willy Boly, but I don't know where he'd be exactly.
I thought you were going to put him. Hey, I love that. Hey, let's really stick it to Dave. Let's stick Erling right up there.
Yeah.
You stuck him right next to our big Willie, haven't you there, mate? Brilliant, mate. Love it.
Yeah. Bernardo.
I guess.
Go on, mate.
Yeah, Bernardo's out, isn't he?
Yeah, Bernardo's out. It's actually probably slightly good news on the side. It sounds it's not too serious. A week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Basically, he's going to be back for Arsenal, because that's a game that really we need him for. Grealish is back in training as well, but again, like Kovacic, it's unlikely to feature. Well, no, actually, he might feature. Pep Guardiola today asked in the press conference, will he play? And he basically said there's a chance that he'll play some minutes. Sounds like he's going to be on the bench, to be honest. So we don't really have one option, and that is Phil Foden and Jeremy Doku. The City fans will debate who should be played where, but for me, it's quite clear. Phil Foden, unless it's in the midfield, his best position is on the right-hand side when he's not playing in midfield. And Jeremy Doku, obviously it's early days, but therefore then has to play on the left. So I think that for me would be my team that I would put out for tomorrow. I think that's a really good team. You've got Alvarez, Foden, Doku, Haaland as your real sort of front four. Nunes going forward as well. I think that'd be really interesting to see tomorrow as well, guys, because one thing that we're all waiting to see from Nunes, we all know he's decent on the ball and defensively sound and athletic, but one thing that his stats really lack are goal contributions, assists, goals, doesn't really have them. And of course, tomorrow, you do have 4 here, but, they are playing against, back 5 and then a 3. You're really going to need Nunes and Rodri to help out a little bit, maybe break the lines with a pass, maybe, running behind here or something like that to sort of like just throw one of the defenders off. But I'm happy with that team. I think that's a good enough team to get the job done.
LB, can I just sort of comment on Jeremy Doku? We've got recent experience of Jeremy Doku. So in pre-season, our lads played Rennes at St George's Park.
Yeah.
And Rennes beat us 5-0. And they were 2-0 up at half-time. One was a penalty and one was a slightly fluky goal. And then whoever the Rennes coach was, he introduced Doku at half-time. He absolutely ran Forrest ragged.
Really?
And he was fantastic. I tell you what, mate, I remember paying a £5 on the Forrest website to watch it. And actually, I could have gone because it's only like 4 or 5 miles up the road from where I live, but it was pissing down the rain. At my age, I might melt. So I stayed at home and watched it. And Doku came on, and I'd seen him play for Belgium in the World Cup, I think, in a relatively average Belgian side. And that night, he absolutely tore for his 2 or 3 new ones, mate. So some of our lads will be thinking, oh, Foden's over there, bloody Thor's here with his hammer, and then that lad's out over there on the right. Oh, God help us, I think what Steve Cooper's doing, he's going to bring some like gun emplacements or something. I don't know. We'll dig some trenches, put some bamboo traps out. You know what I mean? But no, that looks a really good side. But
Doku's a bit of a breath of fresh air for us, mate. Because I know we won the treble, right? But obviously, you're always looking for improvements, right? Otherwise, you stand still, and when you stand still, you go backwards in this game. And the one sort of problem that I had with the team last year is that we had no pace on the wings. We sold Sterling, we sold Jesus, who I still maintain is a better winger than he's a striker.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
we were left with Grealish, Bernardo, Mahrez, and obviously Foden, who breaks the mold a little bit. But them three players who sort of occupy the wing, they're all great players, don't get me wrong, but they're all slow. So then when you're coming up against a team, you've got no optionality. And that was the one thing that last summer I was disappointed in, the sense that we never got like a fast winger to replace Sterling or Jesus. Luckily, in the end, it didn't cost us anything because we went on to win the treble. But I think that deep down, City knew, or Pep Guardiola knew, that that's not ideal to have no pace on the wings. And now you've got Doku, who can play left, he can play right. He looks like an absolute frightening player to defend against, because you don't know what he's going to do, and he'll just take you on every single time. He can cut in on his left. I watched him, and just before we signed him, Ren were playing FC Metz, and he played off the right-hand side that day. He played over here, and he would just take players on for fun every single time. And the one thing, because I liken him to Sterling, but there's a couple of differences. One, he likes to use his weaker foot. Sterling doesn't really like to use his left foot, to be honest with you. He's a right-footed player. Doku had about 3 or 4 shots with his weaker foot that day, and I instantly noticed that. He's direct as well. So a game like this, obviously, he scored a good goal the other night, got us back into the game. He'll be full of confidence, and I think he'll be looking at this thinking, this is a real opportunity for me to sort of put my name out there.
And LB, if I'm coaching City against what Forrest are going to do tomorrow, a guy like Jeremy Doku is going to sort of stretch and stress that back five. He's the guy likeliest to pull it out of shape to allow the other City lads, to take advantage of that. So I think in a way, the good thing for Forrest is they have had a recent sighting of Doku. So I'm sure Steve will have said it in his his information that he gives to the lads before, probably chatting now as we speak and saying, you've seen what this guy can do. He's not coming at Forrest as a surprise, a springer that Forrest don't know about. So so there's that. But I thought that night at St George's Park, mate, he was mustard, and he looked. If he was putting himself in the shop window, by goodness, did he do a good job of it? So I think he might actually tomorrow, to create space in what's going to be Forrest's going to look to be. It's a bit like a nuisance to break down. I think he's a crucial guy for you tomorrow.
No, I agree. I think that's why it's such a good signing for us. And it's early days, of course, but the early signs are very promising. And it's good, interesting to get your insight there, because a lot of fans don't know anything about him. Because like you say, he did play a few times for Belgium, but he's only played 13 times, and whether or not people actually watch it, most people probably didn't. Therefore, they don't know anything about him. So actually, one of the first people out of City, out of the sort of fan base that have that actually know anything about it. That's interesting.
I've had nightmares, mate, about him since that game. You know what I mean? I can't get him out of my bleeding head. Every night I wake up, I see Jeremy Doku run past me, mate.
Well, when you're seeing it on the Sky Sports ticker, City have signed Jeremy Doku, you're like, oh, God's sake, not him again.
That's it. You've read my mind, mate. That's exactly what I did.
Okay, well, that's the City team done. Got a few more positions then for Forrest. How are we setting up here? What's what are Forrest going to do in their sort of?
They're gonna try and irritate City. They're not gonna come and play expansive. Let's put it like that. And what they actually did do so well towards the end of last year was the counter. So the low block and the counter. So I mean, obviously Taiwo is going to be the up top. He's going to be the man up top.
We'll lock him in straight away because we know where he's going to be. Yeah.
And then the other guy is going to be Morgan Gibbs-White, because Morgan is the guy. I do what I love about Morgan is his work rate when we haven't got the ball. A guy like that, a creative guy for us.
Yeah.
And actually still a boy finding his way in this league. You know what I mean? He's still a young guy. He's still got plenty to be. He had a terrific season last season. He won us all over with his decency and his honesty and his work rate. I mean, I think back to the Arsenal game at the end of last season where he beat 4 or 5 guys, had a shot, forced the keeper into a save. Arsenal bowled the ball out to the left-hand side, and in front of A block at our place, he ran like buggery, took the ball off this guy, and then he's like giving him the fist bumps. Come on to A block. and that was like a seminal moment. So, I mean, some I've heard some people saying, "Oh, you know, the flicks and tricks don't come off," and I just wanted to play a simple pass, and he should be benched. He's played too often. But Steve Cooper, when we got to the Premier League, LB, Morgan Gibbs-White was Steve Cooper's number one. Like, you know, they're talking about Am's gone to Tottenham, and his number one was Brennan, right?
Yeah.
Now for Steve, because of that connection with and Phil Foden will know about this. So actually, tomorrow, what you've got a little family reunion there, because I believe Morgan and Brittany are Ronnie's godmother and godfather. So
that is true.
That's going to be there'll be a big Foden Gibbs-White hug at the end of the game and whatever, you know. But with Morgan, he's got that little bit of X factor, and whether some of these people in our fan base like it or not, he is the guy going forward that is going to be our main guy to create something. You know what I mean? And what I like about him is this ability to sort of, when it's required, to get in there and get his hands dirty and do some work coming back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I really like
him.
I like him. I've actually sort of grown as a fan of his, because when he was at Wolves and that, I seen him and I thought he's all right player and that. And of course, then Forrest bought him for some big cash. And as a fan, then I get my back up a little bit then, because I'm being sort of challenged there, because obviously Forrest are paying big cash, and I'm thinking this guy's a standard player. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, am I missing something?
Hey, but mate, the problem was you weren't in the Championship the year before. Now, we played Blades that year 4 times, so we played him home and away in the league. 1-1 at our place, 1-1 at Bramall Lane, and then obviously we played him in the playoff semi-final, which was an epic. We were brilliant in winning 2-1 at Bramall Lane. They came to our place, and actually they were brilliant at our place, and it went to a penalty shootout. But that game at the City Ground, where, I mean, we were 2-1 up from the first leg. Brennan made it 3-1 on aggregate. We thought, we're home and dry here. From that point on, Blades just took over. Morgan made it 2-1. Sander Berger pulled it back, so it's 1-1 on the night, 3-2 on aggregate, and then he had a hand in John Fleck made it 2-1, and he was everywhere. And he's seen every time he played Blades that year, it was him. He was the issue. Now he and Steve go back to this under-17s World Cup win, which actually is another reason why Callum Hudson-Odoi's come in, because he wants to come back with his uncle Steve. And I think Callum, moving forward, eventually, when he gets his feet under the table, he'll be all right for us in our echelon of the table. You know, and obviously Morgan also had a loan spell at Swansea when Steve was there. So there's this connection that Steve Cooper has built a connection with certain players. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think when we were looking at, right, we're back in the Premier League, right, we can go and buy some shiny new toys now. For most of us, he was the one we wanted. I mean, his work at Wolves didn't really recommend him, but certainly his work against us for Sheffield United definitely did. And he had, again, like a lot of ours last year, and actually there'll be some like Sangare and people like that, Dominguez and Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Elanga. These lads are not going to be, and this is where I get annoyed with a lot of people. They're not going to be, right, be perfect now. Don't work like that. You know, City have had, like, I mean, the brilliance of Pep, to me, with younger players in particular. So his handling of Phil Foden was absolutely brilliant. He sort of brought him along, right, play a bit here, Phil, right, have a break now, play a bit here. And he just, you know, built up, and he let Phil learn his trade by being around these great players that City have had and have built this, getting towards being a dynasty. So Phil learned. Rico Lewis is going through the same process. Cole Palmer, I still think he should have stayed. He could have gone through it. I look at him, I think, I watched him for Chelsea the other week, and he's a lovely footballer, but thinking, mate, you should have stayed there. You know what I mean? And what Pep, and is it this young lad, Bob, now he's coming through, getting a game?
Oscar Bob, yeah.
You know, so what Pep's doing is he's sort of gradually, again, getting them as individuals to take those small steps, as you mentioned before, the softly catchy monkey approach, rather than saying, boom, right, go in and be perfect. And, you know, this is where, I mean, I'm lucky. I've you know, been brought up in a football family. My dad was a manager. My granddad was a hell of a good player. and they teach you about patience in football. And a lot of supporters don't have it. Now, me,
No.
if I can't be patient, if I can't be patient, mate, at bloody 59, then I want my head seen to. So the way I look at it, I mean, some of ours, I mean, like the other night, Sangare was all right. He was a 5 or a 6, but he's new to the club. He's not going to be like he was at PSV Eindhoven straight away. A classic example for us last year, mate, a really good player for us who's now playing in the Champions League was Renan Lodi. We had Renan Lodi on loan from Atletico.
Yeah.
And the first 3 or 4 games, and especially that horrendous night at Leicester, what we signed this guy for? He's rubbish. Get rid of him. Terrible, useless. 2 or 3 months later, mate, everybody was like kissing his backside. You know what I mean? And you got to allow. Like, this is where I come back to, mate. 10 games, 20 games, 30 games. Then talk to me about. Don't judge somebody on half an hour. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? As well, just to expand on that a little bit as well. I think when you're a new player coming into a team, and you come into maybe like a Man City team where at the moment we're just winning every game. Fingers crossed we win tomorrow again. It's easy. It's not easy, but it's easier because you know you might not even really have done anything. Your team could be 2-0 up, and then you've got a little bit of more sort of, your shoulders drop because you're 2-0 up, so the pressure's off. You're coming into a team like Forrest or any other team at the moment, other than City. We're winning every game.
Fair point, mate.
And you're coming into a team, you're starting slow. I mean, you look at sort of Arsenal. I mean, they've actually done all right from a points point of view, but they've actually not really played that well. So any new signings, look at Havertz. No wonder Havertz is struggling. I don't rate the guy. I don't think he's a very good footballer. But if he was put in the City team, then maybe he's sort of, his shoulders drop. He can be more relaxed. He's 2-0 up, and he's not got that pressure. Whereas he's coming to that team, and it'll be the same with players coming into any other team, including Forest, and you can't drop your shoulders because you're 0-0, and you know that you've got to fight for every single point. So, these players, obviously Gibbs-White's come in and done a fantastic job. And in fact, so much so that I've actually seen a few people in our chat, who's obviously probably 90% City fans, say, would you be interested in Gibbs-White at City, LB? And I've been like, you know what? It's not, I don't know how far up in the game he can go. But,
his ceiling, mate. His ceiling is really interesting, as was Brennan's before, bless him, he went off to Tottenham, you know what I mean? And like Morgan, I think Morgan's got more levels he can go to. And obviously it's up to Steve and Reedy and Tatey and the lads to get it out of him. I just think there's I mean, what's happening at the moment, he's trying things and they're not all coming off. And people are saying, well, what's he doing that for? And my view is when I ran a team, if you've got a lad who's willing to try something and doesn't come off, then I'm going to say to him, "See, you made a mistake. Do it again. Who cares? You might get it right next time."
For me, it's areas, Dave. As long as they're doing it in the right areas. You look at. I don't know if you've seen the Sheffield United game. If you do like Kyle Walker backing in the ball inside your own penalty area with 5 minutes to go when you're 1-0 up, that's not the right time, and anyone deserves to get. But, if you're up on the other side of the pitch, do what you want.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Can't disagree with that. It wasn't the way Karl was like, he was in front of his beloved Sheffield United cop.
I know.
Lying there like that, watching what was going on.
And then made it even worse because then he played the guy on side.
Yeah.
Because if he would have got up and ran back in and then got himself in line with the defence, the guy who put the ball in the net or the guy who stood in front of Edison would have been offside. But rule that not a lot of people know, if you're off the pitch, then effectively they treat that as you being on the line, which means you play everyone on side. So he actually made a few errors, but in the end managed to get us back into it. But let's just have a quick recap then of the teams. Then these are the predicted 11s for tomorrow, guys. So for City, I'm going for Edison with Walker, Diaz, Gvardiol, and Ake. Rodri to play. I think Nunes will start there with Alvarez in the attacking midfielder because obviously Kovacic has only just come back. Grealish is back in the team, but he's probably going to be on the bench. I'd imagine Foden will be on the right, Doku on the left. However, that is interchangeable. And obviously, the big man up front. And then for Forrest, Dave's gone with obviously new goalkeeper from Arsenal, Turner in goal. You got Tavares, obviously again from Arsenal at left back. Niakite, Willy Bolly, of course. If you missed it before, got his stats up. He's played against City 5 times, won 1, drawn 1, lost 3. He's also scored a goal and been sent off. Worrell and is it Aina? How you say his name?
Yeah,
I-
Aina. Yeah,
Aina. Okay.
yeah.
Sangare, Mangala, and Yates with Gibbs-White and Taiwo Awoniyi
Awoniyi.
up top.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, you give us the predicted score before, but just say it again for the people that have only just joined, Dave.
Well, given that I stirred that hornet's nest of people saying City have only conceded 1 goal since like 1966 at home, to say that Forrest are going to get 2, but I've just had it stuck in my head.
Oh,
Right.
don't change now, Dave. You know what I mean?
No,
Stats are
LB,
nonsense.
mate. I'm too long in the tooth for change, mate. I'm resistant to it. So, mate, I'm going to stick. Right, City are going to win. Right. If you pump me full of the strongest LSD and the strongest magic mushrooms, mate, I'm still not going to come up and say I could come in here like Sean Ryder and Bez, and I'm still not going to say Forrest are going to win. Absolutely not. Like I say to you, mate, all I want to see tomorrow is progress from the 6-0. I don't want a 6-0 drubbing. Right. That's what I don't want. That is my start point. So if Forrest come away tomorrow and they've been beaten, but they've given City some kind of, things to think about, a little bit of stress here and there.
Yeah.
And a kind of an honourable. Steve Cooper won't want to defeat. Steve Cooper, bless him, will want to come there. And his idea was right. Like, what's the best way we can find of beating this great opponent? But I think most of us fans are kind of thinking. I mean, I've got a mate who's been putting all over Facebook, City 0, Forest 1, and he's just got laugh emojis underneath, like saying, "What planet are you on, mate? Are you Neptune, Uranus? Where are you from?" You know what I mean? So I absolutely don't see Forest winning. But I've just got it in my head, stupidly. And the thing is, I'll get clipped, and LB will be saying, "Dave, do you remember what Dave Ashby said? He came on and he put nonsense." And he would say, you'd be saying to Potsy and all the lads on the 12th man, but he came on my show and he disgraced himself. And here's the evidence, you know what I mean? But I've just got it in my head, mate, that we will. I think we'll score 1. And I've just got, for some stupid reason, all day, I thought City 4, Forest 2. And what I'd like to think is we come out. I remember last year actually walking out the Etihad after the game with all these City fans, right? And it worked out that I was a Forest fan because obviously my accent's not very Manchester. Even though I'm madly into Joy Division and the Smiths and the Roses and the Mondays and all that kind of stuff, the Fall, Buzzcocks, what have you, all those great bands. And he going, there was this old guy coming out and he got his blue and white scarf and he goes, "You'll be all right, mate, your lads. You'll be all right. There'll come a time," And it was really sweet. So, but tomorrow, I just think, you look. The thing is, when we put the 2 teams up, LB, the gulf in ability and class is clear to see. Where we need to bridge the gulf is the attitude's got to be right. The team spirit, which actually last season is one of the reasons we stayed up. We've got to do. I've got to. Me and the others have got to do our job in the away end tomorrow. And I just think that if we come out, like say, not having been striked like we did last year, and at least say to us as fans, to the watching media, to the City fans, and actually to themselves, we've made these steps from August the 28th or whatever it was last year to this point, and we're making some kind of move forward. I mean, a lot of people said about us at the start of the season. I mean, it's really nice. Guys like yourself, LB, and like Potsy said it, and some of the other boys on 12 man, people are now seeing us as like not in that relegation battle, or more likely to be out of it than in it. I mean, personally, I'm like, whoa, it's only 5 games. Let's not get carried away. I think we're still in a relegation battle until we're not, as far as I'm concerned, because I utterly hate delusion. I mean, I could come on here and say, "Are we going to do this? I love Forest, therefore they're going to win." I mean, that's the last refuge of the foolish, mate. I'm not doing that. So I just want to see that little bit tomorrow of progress from last year against City. And then ideally what I'd like is somebody said to me, "Right, we'll give you 13th, 14th at the end of the season." I'll bite your hand off, mate. I mean, I said last year that 17th would do me. We finished 16th in the end. So, that was a really good effort. But I know for a fact Steve wants to take it further. The owner is very ambitious. I mean, what's happened with the owner, Mr. Marinakis, mate, is that you go back 4 or 5 years, then Olympiacos were his priority, and Forrest was sort of a languishing as a distant second best. I think that relationship has changed now. So guys who aren't good enough now for Forrest either go on loan or are sold to Olympiacos. Where if you go back 4 or 5 years, I mean, Olympiacos were like a team in Europe. I think they're in Europe in the Europa Conference or something this year. But back in the day, it was almost like average Olympiacos players coming to Forest. Well, Forest have changed that round now. So if we can just be not looking over our shoulders. I mean, at the moment, mate, I'm like, we're 8th, and I'm looking down at Newcastle United, Manchester United, Chelsea, Fulham, and Crystal Palace, who I've been told by certain people are the biggest club on earth. I think you know what I'm on about. You know what I mean? So for us to be, I mean, this is it. Disappointment coming out. Oh, we haven't beat Burnley, and I'm literally, mate. I'm like looking at my phone, like I'm going, bloody hell, we're 8th. You know, and if somebody said, right, after 5 games, Forest, you'll be 8th in this division, 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, and your losses have been, good efforts, mate, I'd have taken that absolutely. You know what I mean? So,
no, absolutely. I mean, for me, you going for a 4-2. That's what you're feeling. I'm gonna go for. I don't think we'll score 6. I don't.
I hope you don't.
Yeah. No, I don't think we will. I do think we'll score a few. Again, I'm sort of in the sort of 2 to 4 region. And we've conceded a few sloppy goals recently, which is really disappointing. The one that we've conceded against Fulham off a corner, disappointing. The goal in midweek against Belgrade, disappointing. So I'll give you a goal.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a 3-1. I'm going to go for a 3-1 City victory, which I'll be very happy about. Obviously, Arsenal play on Sunday. If we can put the pressure on Arsenal again by getting the 3 points, meaning that Arsenal have to beat Spurs, really. Otherwise, I think we'll be 5 points clear. That would be amazing this stage of the season. But a quick question that came in for you before, Dave. Sorry, guys, I forgot who sent it in, but feel free and I'll give you a shout out. Was from a City point of view, where would you say the main weaknesses for Forest? Where, if you was Pep Guardiola, knowing much about your team as you do, what's the sort of main weakness? Is it down the left, down the right? Is it in the middle, midfield? What would you say? Set pieces, maybe?
I just think we lack a little bit of pace in that central defensive area, mate. I just think if you can get our guys on the turn,
right?
I mean, Haaland, really, the way he's been playing and with the ability he's got and at this exalted level he's been at, really should give Worrell, Willie, and Moussa Niakhaté a really torrid time. I think Aina against Doku, I think Aina will be a better competition for Doku maybe than Montiel played. I mean, now Montiel's the guy who won the World Cup for Argentina. He was the guy who took the penalty and finished Messi's fairy tale for him and carried, however many million Argentinians on his shoulders to take a penalty. The other night against Burnley, the poor little fellow was woeful. Koleosho just turned him inside out. So I think if he'd have played tomorrow, based on that, I don't think he'll play tomorrow. He's another one. I think he might just have to learn about Nottingham and all that kind of thing. So I think Aina came in on a free. He was pretty good against Marcus Rashford. Not bad against Bukayo Saka. And I thought he had a good game at Chelsea as well. I mean, I think I'll let Aina. I mean, Doku should have his measure. But I actually think, looking at that team, that Doku, for the reasons you outlined, mate, like you said, City didn't really have a pacey winger to kind of bend if defence is out of shape. I think if Doku sees a lot of the ball early and Forrest are kind of having to, come out of that shape they want. I mean, I'll give you an example. When Arsenal came at the end of last season, Forrest set up in a similar way with a 5 at the back. That game that won you the title, actually. And Arsenal just kept shuffling from side to side. And wherever they went, Forrest went with them. And Forrest said, all right, you have the ball. Forrest had 18% in that game, right? Which I think was a record for the lowest amount of ball retention in the history of the Premier League. And we won 1-0. And it was like, and I actually think Steve might have done it against you at the City Ground. And he might have done it against Arsenal at the City Ground. Right. you're going to have possession because that's what Manchester City are all about. Arsenal are going to have lots of possession. That's what they're all about. Have the ball, lads. You lot have the ball, and we'll just be a bloody nuisance moving the barricades here and there. And Arsenal couldn't break through. Now, City, with a guy like Doku and his ability to kind of, he'll look to take his man on, and he seems to me like he can come inside or go outside, which, a lot of wingers. I mean, if Phil's going to play out on the right, Phil's going to come in on that left foot most of the time.
Yeah, he will.
You know what I mean? He has the ability to go out, come and put a ball in with his right foot. But Phil's natural tendency is to be left-footed and come inside. Now, I think Doku can go in and out, and I do think Doku is the key guy to stretch. If Forrest is going to be like just robust and resilient in that shape, Doku is the guy. If he starts giving Olaina some trouble, and Joe then gets dragged into dealing with, and Joe, I mean, the other night against Burnley, when Burnley scored their goal, Koleosho just literally ran past Joe Worrell, got to the byline, laid a ball back, and Amdouni stuck it in the back of the net. And if you start exposing Joe, no, great lad for us, love Joe to pieces. Same with Willie, same with Moose. But if you start exposing them three to that pace of Doku, to then allow the spaces for Alvarez, Phil, and Erling to get in, Forrest is going to have a long afternoon, mate. So I think it's just the pace in that back line, mate.
Yeah, no, and again, going back to what I spoke about before, I think that's why it was so crucial that we got someone like Jeremy Doku into the team who's got that little bit of pace, who can just change it up a little bit. You got the Grealishes and that, and the Bernardos, and they're all great in that. But sometimes when you come up against a team that is just no nonsense, who don't want to play, but they don't really want to be adventurous, and they're just happy to sit there. Well, sometimes you need someone who's just going to do something a little bit random. You were talking about Gibbs-White before with his flicks. Sometimes we might need something a little bit like that. That's not so choreographed to try and break the game down. I'm looking forward to it.
I think for us, mate, what Forrest eventually learned to do last year, they got over their hubris. Oh, we're just going to play like we did in the Championship because it served as well. Well, it soon became clear that wasn't the case. And what Forrest then did, it was almost like they sat down, worked out what their limitations were, and said, right, let's be honest about who we are, what we can and can't do, and work within those parameters.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than having this idea, I mean, some people were saying like, oh, we should be taking to the game to them. What? Because we won a Champions League in 1979 and 1980. Do me a favour. It's okay. The name's big, but the team at the moment is still learning. So I think what Steve Cooper's done is he's brought a level of like, know what you are and then be the best version of yourself. So all I want tomorrow is I'm looking forward to going. It's an amazing place to go and watch, watch football. I'm going to see some of the great players on the planet, and mine as well. And if we can be a nuisance to City for as long as possible, then I'll be happy with that. But like I say, it's going to be a City win. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be 6 out of 6. And then who do you play after us, mate? What's your next 3 games?
League-wise, we've got Wolves away. Which will be an interesting test because they've actually not played too bad this year. And if they had a striker who could put the ball in the back of the net, they'd be a lot higher in the division. Then we've got Arsenal, and then I think Brighton. So this is what I said. These next 2 games for us are crucial because we need to be getting 6 points, because then we basically go on a horrendous run for October and November, playing like top 8. I think Bournemouth once in that whole 2-month period, and everything else is like Arsenal, Brighton, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, United. Like it's heavy.
Where's the Arsenal game, mate? Is it the Etihad?
Emirates.
Right down there then,
Yeah, it's down there.
Mate, I'm telling you,
they've not beaten us in the league for about. Someone in the chat can tell me it must be about a decade now. We've got their number big time.
Yeah.
League,
Yeah.
So,
I think if you go win at the Emirates, like, is it like the week after next or something? Then you can almost say, I know it's ridiculous to say it, but it might almost be done and dusted even by then.
Well, this is what I'm saying, because of course, if we win tomorrow, right, which I still don't think is a foregone conclusion, and Tottenham get a result, we'd be 5 points clear. 5 points
Yeah.
clear. That you go and beat them. You're 8 points clear of Arsenal. And, and then it's just like, okay, interesting. Of course, you got to get the points on the board. You got to win tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got to beat Wolves. I do think that some people are underestimating how that the game could be tough tomorrow. And I think Wolves could be tough as well. Our squad is now short. We don't have a lot of players. Luckily, we're getting news that Kovacic and Grealish are back into the team, back into the squad.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's going to take them a week or so to get fully back at it.
Mm.
Bernardo's obviously a big miss, and I really want him to be back for Arsenal. But if we can get through this next 2 to 3 weeks with getting 3 points in the league games, I mean, we could be 8 points clear of Arsenal. And I just don't think there's anyone else in this league at the moment that's anywhere close to winning the league.
No.
I think you look at Liverpool. Their attack is outstanding, but their midfield and defence is still shockingly bad. Spurs are a good team, but 1 or 2 injuries to Son, Maddison, Basuma, and they ain't nowhere to be seen.
Yeah,
I think, I don't know if you've seen the comment, though. Kyle Walker said before the season started, he said to the team, obviously he's one of the captains, he got the team together and said, why do we only start playing in January, February? Why don't we actually start? Why don't we start playing in August and actually just try and run away with the league? And that just shows you the mentality of the players. That, like I think this City team know that not just in England, in Europe as well, that they are massively better than everybody else. And that's not from an arrogant point of view. I'm just saying we smashed Bayern Munich in the Champions League last year. We've battered Real Madrid twice, 2 years on the trot. That 2 years ago we should not have got beat. We should have beat them. We smashed them at home and then crumbled. I think the players know that we're better than everyone else. And if we turn up and don't take your foot off the gas, and sometimes you lose a little bit, you'll win the league. And you could obviously you need a bit of luck in cup competitions, but I think they know they can win that as well. So, but of course, you got to get the job done, and it starts tomorrow for us. So,
and I tell you what, mate, it's an interesting point that you make, and Karl makes, that like for the rest of us, if somebody said, is there a right time to catch City, and you're going to say, well, August, September, and October, because they're sort of still working things out. But it seems this time it's been worked out before they've even got to the start point of the first game, wherever they, Burnley. They knew kind of what they were going to do. I mean, you'd like to think if you've just won a treble, you've cracked all the codes and you just keep the codes the same, then you move on. You know what I mean? I mean, I have got one tiny molecule of hope, and it comes from the name of Brentford, mate, because Brentford beat you home and away last year. So somebody said to me, do you think they will? I said, no, City will beat Forrest tomorrow. I said, but Brentford, smashing a bit of a smashing grab before the World Cup, and then obviously beat you. I mean, I think you were already champions. Were you champions when you went to Brentford? Or were you not champions? I can't remember. I mean, without and Brentford are kind of, I think Brentford are a level above us. But if we could somehow emulate what Brentford did, well, you just never know. But
I think that there was 2 parts to that Brentford game. I'll talk about the home game because that was more interesting. One, they actually just played us off the park that day. It was a humbling experience and a little bit of a sort of reminder that no matter how good you are, no matter how much money these players have played, you can always get beat off any team. And that's why I always go into the games thinking we're going to win. Of course, I'm not an idiot. Like, we're better than everyone on the planet. But I'm also aware that at the end of the day, it comes to 11 players against 11. And Brentford were fantastic that day. Even Tony was, he should have had a hat trick for maybe 5 goals that day. He was outstanding. The only other thing I would say about that is, and we've seen it a little bit in the game recently, is I'm starting to notice a little bit of a pattern now with City just before the international break of form dipping off a little bit. I don't know whether players are looking at the internationals thinking, I don't want to get injured, I want to play for it or whatever. But that was the last game before the international break. The recent game that we played, maybe someone in the chat can let me know. Maybe it was Fulham, or I can't remember, or whatever game we played. We weren't great. So maybe there's something in that. But at the end of the day, mate, you're not travelling up to the Etihad tomorrow to go, we're going to get thumped 6-0. You got to have some sort of hope. And you look at something like that, and that is inspiration. But
I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's going to be great. You know what I mean? I did every game last year, which I've never ever been at, because I've always played safe. I always wanted me to be kicking the football, not watching somebody else doing it. And now I'm into my dotage. I go to all the games, mate, and it's my passion. And you know, I love, like I say, I go to see my own team and to love my own team, but I always watch two teams, mate, wherever we go. So this week at the Etihad, I'll watch us and City, and then next week when Brentford come to us, and then following week at Palace. You know what I mean? So no, I'm really looking forward to it, mate, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you tonight. I've really enjoyed it. You know,
no, it's been a great conversation. I want to thank you so much for coming on, man, and spending a long time chatting about the game, and obviously a lot of tactics and sort of player styles for Forrest that maybe some people in the chat and myself didn't know. It's always good because one of the things that I like doing is you don't like going into games having no idea about the opposition. And like that's what happened to me the other night when we played Red Star Belgrade. You're going into the game and people are saying to me in the chat, LB score predictions for tonight. And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. I never seen this.
Could you not get? I bet getting a Red Star Belgrade fan on was a bit more difficult than getting a Forest fan.
I mean, where do you even start with that? Do you know what I mean? Where do you even? I don't know. So no, it's been a good show.
Call him Belgrade.
No, it's been a good show. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, mate. And much love to all the City fans out there. I hope you get beat tomorrow, and you won't. So I can say that. So. Now, mate, it's been, and can I say big up to your dad as well, mate, because he reminded me of legendary times gone. So, yeah, much love to you and all your family, mate, and all the City people. It's been great.
Yeah, big up to Dave, man. Thank you very much for coming on. Chat, hope you enjoyed that stream, man. That was honestly one of the best streams I've done this season, man. Big conversation, a lot of insight. If you did enjoy it, of course, always make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you're new, as we're pushing on to 8,000. And of course, if you're watching this back on a replay, make sure you let us know in the comment section about anything that you liked about tonight's conversation. So guys, enjoy the rest of your Friday night. It's a big day of football tomorrow. I might be doing the City's under-18s are playing at 11 a.m. If I can get myself out of bed, I'll do a watch along for that one. Of course, we've got the big game, City versus Forest. And then again, unless anything's planned tomorrow night with my girlfriend, I don't think there is. And when they're all clear, then we'll watch Vincent Kompany take 3 points off that PE teacher down the road. So listen, guys, enjoy your Friday night. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you tomorrow, man. See you later.